Many Louisiana residents are worried about losing their access to Medicaid coverage with what we're seeing right now in the federal changes to requirements. Today we are visiting with Mr. Carl Lee Rett, CEO of United Healthcare Community Plan of Louisiana. Mr. Carl, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, what can you tell us about these changes that we're seeing, and what can you say to those who are worried about losing their Medicaid coverage?
Yes, absolutely. It starts with the public health emergency, also known as PHE, that was started during COVID. And that's where the federal government required Medicaid agencies to provide continuous coverage to its members. It was part of the condition for them to receive federal funding. But this continuous coverage that was given to the members allowed them to have it without doing the annual renewal process. And one thing we know across the state of Louisiana is that there's about 2 million members that have Medicaid, and that represents about a 26% increase during the COVID period. So a couple of things that we know have changed, and that is with the income levels for these individuals potentially, and also family size. So it's very important for them to check to make sure they still have coverage and it wasn't affected, because the public health emergency is ending, and they need to make sure they check in that coverage.
Now, you mentioned that it's, of course, really important to make sure we're keeping that Medicaid coverage, but what exactly are the risks that come with potentially losing that coverage?
Yeah, well, the risk is to their health. And at United Healthcare, we are a big believer in preventative maintenance and making sure they get their tests and checkups and vaccines, chronic conditions. It's very important for them to stay at their best health. So we believe that a gap in coverage is going to challenge them to have that best health.
And for those looking to renew or see what their coverage looks like right now, what their eligibility is, how can they do that?
Well, first and foremost, as far as checking in with the Medicaid agency to make sure that they have the most accurate information as far as their contact information, phone numbers, very critical that they go to MyMedicaid.LA.gov. Once again, that's MyMedicaid.LA.gov to make sure all of that is current and active. Secondly, over the next 12 months, Medicaid in Louisiana will be sending out those renewal packages. So it's very critical that they not only look at it, but they act upon it on the by the due date that's given. And then lastly, if unfortunately they receive notice that they did lose coverage, there's other low-cost options with the individual family plan in the marketplace exchange. And then lastly, they could be checking with their potential employer to see if there's coverage options there. And we recommend they go to their human resource department.
Now, I'm sure you guys get a lot more frequently asked questions than what we have time for here today. So for any of our viewers looking to check up on their eligibility or just have more questions for you guys, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to their United Healthcare Community Plan site to check in, but once again, they need to go to MyMedicaid.LA.gov, and that's going to have all the relevant information that they need.
Mr. Carl, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, you can visit that website on your screen. If you have any other questions that we weren't able to get to today, visit that website to learn more.